Welcome to School Talk. This show is made possible by the students in South's television production class, and it's designed to explore topics of interest in our neighborhood schools. Today we'll be exploring the two millage proposals that are on the November 4th ballot, and joining us today to do that is our Deputy Superintendent, Christian Fenton. Chris, thanks so much for coming today.
It's a pleasure to be here.
All right. Now the first question that I'm hearing from our community is whether or not these are renewals that are on the ballot.
Yes, there's two proposals on the ballot. Both of them are renewals. We had them 5 years ago. And the first one is a combination of a homestead and non-homestead millage.
Okay.
The maximum of 18 mills will be levied of the 19 mills that it's listed. And also we have a millage on our hold harmless, or our basically our homes in the community.
Okay.
And that is a renewal as well. That one is based on the number of students that are in the district. The second proposal is really distinct from the other two, but it is also renewal. It is for our sinking fund millage, and it's for 1 year, 1 mill for 5 years.
Okay. Now, then why does the ballot language have the word increase embedded within it?
It has the word increase because it's really starting over from zero. The millages expire this fiscal year, and in order to start over again, you're really starting from zero, but they are both truly renewals of what we've been doing for the last 5 years.
Okay, so the increase goes from zero to what we've been paying.
That's correct.
Okay.
This is not an increase in the rates, it's not an increase in tax dollars either.
Okay. Now, the next big question that I'm hearing is whether or not these funds stay here in Grosse Pointe for our students. Do they stay here?
Yes, both the homestead, the non-homestead, and the sinking fund millage are all here locally. Okay. There is a separate 6 mills on the person's property tax bill.
Okay.
That goes to the state, but that has nothing to do with what we're doing here on the renewals.
Okay.
Both the renewals stay here in the community.
So this isn't like the past proposals where a portion, where it goes to the state or to the county and then a portion comes back to us on a per pupil. All of this money stays here for our students.
All the millage stays here, and it's for our students. That's correct.
Well, then looking at the big picture, how much of our annual budget does this represent?
The two proposals, the homestead and the non-homestead, account for 23% of the general fund budget.
Okay.
The sinking fund is about another 2%. If you combine those, the general fund and the sinking fund together, it's about 25% of the total revenue are off of these two proposals. They're both very critical.
So it's a quarter of our whole budget.
Yes, that's correct.
About $25 million.
That's correct.
All right. And now, why are we asking voters now on the November ballot?
Well, it used to be in prior years, a few years ago, that we ran the elections and was our cost. Now the state has mandated that the elections be held in November, okay. And so we're piggybacking on the November ballot. Consequently, there is virtually no cost to the district other than the cost of preparing the ballots, or the ballot proposals. But all the costs are borne by the municipalities as part of the November election. If these millages didn't get approved, or don't get approved, then we have to bear the cost for the election, which runs about $65,000. But they're on the November ballot, and it's plus more people vote in November typically,
that makes sense.
Whether it's a gubernatorial election or a presidential election.
So if these don't pass in November, because it's such a large portion of our budget, we'd likely bring this back to voters?
Yes, the Board of Education makes that decision, okay. But my recommendation would be to bring it back as soon as we could, because it's 25% of our budget.
Okay. Let's take a moment just to digest that, and coming up after the break, we'll delve just a little bit further into the operating millage and the sinking fund. So stay tuned, we'll be right back. Welcome back to School Talk. Today we're discussing the two millage renewals that are on the November ballot, and joining us to do that is our Deputy Superintendent, Christian Fenton. All right, now we promised that we would delve a little bit deeper into these proposals, and
sure.
One of the big questions anytime we have something on the ballot is how much is this going to cost taxpayers? So let's start with the operating millage.
The operating millage for a typical homeowner of a home valued about $200,000 or taxable value of $100,000, it'll be around $733, about the same as it was in prior years. Now, I have to say that amount might change slightly, but more than likely it'll go down a little bit because that homestead, the hold harmless millage is based on the number of students. Right now we're experiencing a little student decline, so in fact the rate will actually go down slightly. And so, but we're projecting about $733 on a taxable value home of $100,000.
Okay. Now, we're talking about homeowners now, but I've been asked questions about renters. And sometimes there's a misconception that renters don't pay taxes. And so can you talk a little bit about that and help us clear that up?
Sure. Well, renters, the property that is included in the rental property are subject to the non-homestead rate of 18 mills.
Okay.
So businesses, commercial entities along all the major thoroughfares in our community, and rental homes and rental properties pay the 18 mills. And when that property owner has their taxes and their bills, they include that as part of their cost, and that's included in the rental amount. So the renters pay taxes, but it's not like on a tax bill, it's included in their portion of the rent that covers the cost of renting that property.
Okay. Now, what do we use the operating millage for in our district?
Basically, it's for the general operations of the school system. That includes salaries, benefits for teachers and the staffs, for the custodians, for administrators. It includes all the teaching supplies, technology equipment, repairs and maintenance, utilities. It's really for the operation of this school system. It also includes athletics, music, the arts. Everything is included in that package.
Okay. Now, what about the sinking fund? Tell me what you said that would cost the owner of a $200,000 home with a taxable value of $100,000. How much would the sinking fund cost?
That'd be about $100.
Okay. And that too is a renewal.
That's a renewal as well, and that generates right now for the district about $2.5 million per year. About the same as in prior years, a little bit higher than last year based on the property taxes going up slightly, but it's still $100. It's 1 mil. That's not increased. That covers all the repairs and maintenance for our major properties in the school system. That's the buildings, the fields. In the past, we've done roofs, doors, we've done work in the restrooms, all sorts of major improvements. The law is very specific about the sinking fund, what it could be spent on. And it's not for maintenance, it's for repairs and improvements. And there's a distinction that the state lays out, which our auditors make sure we're spending the money in the right fund and for the right purpose.
So usually what I've heard in the past is that sinking fund projects are things that are fixed. For example, you had told me once before about bleachers. Can you give that as an example?
Bleachers that are in a foundation, for example, would be covered under the sinking fund. Portable bleachers would not. Those are movable equipment, and so we cannot purchase any of those type of items. Further, another example is like computer equipment, like laptops, desktop units, or whatever. They cannot be purchased out of the sinking fund. It's really for the major improvements. We just did this past year here at South, in fact, the field, the turf at South, and that was paid for out of the sinking fund. Again, major restroom renovations, those type of activities and projects are out of there. And those are big projects. Typically, they're usually $50,000 to $500,000. One important part of the sinking fund this current year and projected the next year is we're spending approximately $1.1 million on technology infrastructure improvements. That's the wiring and the cabling that goes into the
pieces that are fixed that you can't easily move.
We can't spend it on the end equipment, but we can spend it on the infrastructure.
Okay. Now, when you are talking about these pieces, you come to us from a very unique perspective. You're part of that demographic in our community, which is a sizable portion that no longer has children in our public schools or never had children in our public schools.
So what you mean is I'm very old?
I would not say that, but what I'm saying is that like Birmingham and Bloomfield, we have a significant portion of our community that doesn't currently use our public schools for the educational pieces. Why is this an important piece for them to educate themselves about?
Well, for a couple of reasons. Number one, the students use it on a daily basis, obviously our K-12 students, but our buildings are open to the public. We have various groups use our facilities, both inside the buildings, outside the buildings, on a daily basis almost. We run a lot of programs for the community. So that's one piece. The other piece is this helps our property values, keeping our system operating where it should be, and keeping the improvements and the repairs where they should be, keeps a quality district a quality district. And we want to continue that because it helps our property values. And from a perspective of a parent, and I've lived in Grosse Pointe Woods for probably 41 years now, just in the woods, but I want to continue that. My kids are gone and I have grandkids, but I want to make sure that that is maintained and improved for the overall quality of the community.
Okay. Now what happens if we don't levy all of the local taxes that we could?
Well, there's a couple things. Number one, the state assumes in their calculation of what they call the state foundation allowance. And that's the number you hear bantered around at the state level. And that's really composed of three things. It's composed of our non-homestead amount, our homestead or hold harmless amount, and the state aid amount. They assume that we're levying our full amount authorized by law to get to the state aid portion. If we levy less than that, that's fine, but the state assumes we're levying the full amount, thus they would give us less state aid. So it's to our benefit to make sure we're levying what we need to levy within the confines of the law and making sure so we get all the dollars that are appropriate and from the state level. So it's very important to keep those levels at where they should be or where they were before.
Okay, now I'm going to lob an easy one at you. Where do people go if they want to vote?
These elections are all run by the municipalities, all 6 municipalities, and they're typically the same precincts that you've voted at in your other elections, whether it's gubernatorial, federal, and if there's any changes, the cities will all have those posted on their website, but I don't believe any of them have changed. So you can contact them, but it's the same places you vote normally in any election.
All right, and where can people find factual information about the millages?
All the information is on the website. They can also listen to board meetings because that's updated there. We have some flyers and mailings that will be going out, but typically most of the information they can see on the website, or they can contact us at grossepointeschools.org, and we can answer their questions there as well.
Perfect. Well, thank you for joining us today.
Very nice. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for joining us today. And if you have a group or an organization that you'd like a member of the district staff to present to, we would love to do that. Please just send me an email at rebecca.fannin@gpschools.org or call 313-432-3010. We appreciate the time that you've invested in learning about these proposals. We hope that you will continue to learn more about these renewals that are on the ballot, as well as the 7 people who are choosing to run as candidates for the school board. And most importantly, we hope that you vote November 4th. Thank you again for joining us for another episode of School Talk.